Hello, welcome to the Nintendo Bros podcast. This is Pete.
And this is Derek.
And we're in a whole new year now, Derek. This is 2024 edition.
I know, it's a brand new year to talk about video games.
I know, exciting. So today we've got some exciting things to talk about, as always. It's been about a month since we talked because we've been busy and stuff. And so we've got some games to talk about. We've also got the Microsoft Developer Showcase that just happened, so we're going to talk about some of that, which is exciting. But first, Derek, I just wanted to, it's the Game of the Year season is kind of upon us. We're a little past it. I like how you and I wait a little later into the year to firm up our Game of the Year list.
Yeah.
I think it's really weird how the Game Awards and stuff are in early December. The year's not over.
I need time to finish those last few games for sure.
Yeah, it drives me crazy actually because even the movie industry has enough common sense to hold on to their award show until the following year.
True, exactly. Yeah, like the Oscars. Yeah.
And the thing with video games is no one can. It's one thing to watch a huge amount of big movies in a year, but nobody can play all the big games within a year.
Yeah, unless it's your job, and even then.
I'm not. I mean, maybe if you just play obsessively, you don't have any family, kids, hobbies, or anything. But how does someone do it?
It makes you question people that have submitted reviews for the Game Awards or whatever. It's okay, maybe they played Baldur's Gate 3. A playthrough, and maybe Tears of the Kingdom, but that's 250 hours just between those two games. How much are they really playing each game to really give a fair, review for the Game Awards?
No kidding. And the other thing is where I keep comparing to movies, because movies is a lower bar of entry. You can watch a bad movie very easily, and it's not
or even be tired
deal. Or just throw on any Marvel movie, right? But with games, it's you are already making a decision before you decide to purchase or play the game. Unless you work at IGN and every game is available to you, people like us, there's already a criteria for what's the game I'm even going to try,
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of absurdity around Game of the Year, and I think what it really comes down to, it's the best games that I played and the best games that you played. It's,
Yeah, it's just I would say it's not necessarily the best games of the year. It's the games that we played, and it's kind of a snippet of a reflection of the whole year as a snapshot, if you will. Where it's these are the genres that I play and I enjoy, and these are what I thought of them overall. And same for you, obviously.
Exactly, and even something let's say Reset Era, where their top 10 is based on an aggregate of people who have voted, it's still representative of that demographic of age, of English speakers, where it's missing out on a lot of 6 to 12-year-olds who play Fortnite or play Minecraft. So it's all demographics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how anyone could ever make the truest Game of the Year list possible. I mean, unless you polled every single gamer.
Yeah.
But beyond that, for our listeners, all 10 of you, our next episode will be about Derek and my top games of 2023, and we're also going to include some videos where we each talk about our top lists. Derek, you might do a top 15. I'm going to do a top 10.
I'm going to do a top 10.
Oh, okay.
I've narrowed it down.
Okay, nice. But anyways, Derek, let's talk about the exciting news from today.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft had a developer showcase.
And this is, I think this is the second time ever, right? The last one in 2023 was the first ever.
At
least under this kind of
styling.
I'm sure this kind of Nintendo Direct kind of copycat kind of style.
It's almost not a Nintendo Direct though. It's almost more of it's like an inside the developer studio style, because they really interview the developers, show their staff, that kind of thing.
Totally. I wasn't necessarily talking about how they showed the games. I just meant kind of that visual style of quick shots of games coming out in the next year or whatever. It's very different than let's say an Xbox showcase at E3, right? This is I still think 2023 was the first time they've kind of done this direct kind of YouTube
maybe. I thought
video.
this was maybe the third time, but I maybe it is the second time. You're right.
You would know better than I would, but
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't really know, but I know they haven't done a lot of them. But I really like the format personally. What do you think, Derek? Like, what do you think of the format overall?
Yeah, I like it too. I mean, I wish I kind of go back and forth because I do like the Nintendo Direct style where they have a lot of little updates and little games that you wouldn't see necessarily. Where it seems like the Xbox Direct is a lot more focused on their kind of big tentpole games the next year or two. And again, I want to see those games. So I'm excited to see them. And we got some cool announcements today and some kind of deeper looks into some of the games we're anticipating. But there are those kind of small games that I've seen during Nintendo Direct where like I'm surprised. I'm like, oh man, I've never heard of that game ever. Looks awesome. I think of like Untitled Goose Game, for example.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing too, the big difference is that with the Nintendo Direct, they are often extremely vague about what they're going to show. Sometimes even being like actually not telling the truth. They'll be like, "Oh, these games are from this winter," and then they'll show something from like 2 years in the future.
Yeah.
Where with this, they actually just pretty much told us straight up all the games they were going to show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's because Microsoft has a harder time with leaks. But there is this. There is this thing with Nintendo Directs where it's like, "Oh wow, my childhood dreams might be fulfilled tomorrow."
True. It's kind of funny because they did have that surprise game. We'll talk about it in the Xbox Direct today, and I was like, they really could have surprised us with one of the other game that was kind of new to this year, and I think that would have landed way better if they had surprise shown that one.
I agree.
I mean?
And I think had they maybe just come out and said, "Hey, we're showing 4 or 5," or saying we're showing 5 upcoming games for Xbox, and that's it. Like, didn't tell us what the games were, because I mean, in the case of the Indiana Jones game, I think it would have been really cool to see that today and having no idea that it was coming today.
Yeah, and just drop the trailer and the music. That'd be awesome.
Totally.
I think again, I know there's a time and place for this, and they want to focus on certain games. But I'm going to go back to that kind of Nintendo Direct. It's like they could have had a sizzle reel showing, the Diablo 3 next season and other Blizzard and Call of Duty new maps updating, and then go to Bethesda and talk about a Starfield. Like, they could have done a quick 8-minute reel or 5-minute reel or whatever it is and just showed, again, their huge game catalog that they finally now own and just kind of built that hype up because, again, these 4 games look pretty solid or whatever. But I still think they need to show that they're a powerhouse worth, like, look at all the things that we are now, creating.
I completely agree. And I don't think it'd be too much. I don't think it'd be too much to ask for them even to do things like in that sizzle reels. Remind us of the updates coming to Halo Infinite. Remind us that Persona 3 Reload is coming to Game Pass on day 1. Remind us, get me excited about the next few months of Xbox, because I think these types of events get a lot, or events I call them videos, get a lot more attention than just like the average Twitter drop. And like you and I are avid enthusiasts, we know about these things, but it would help to promote Persona 3, which is coming in 2 weeks to Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah,
that would have been a huge thing to promote. So I'm just curious about that.
You're totally right. Like, why don't we have a Game Pass sizzle reel? Like, the only way I hear about the Game Pass games is a forum that posts Reset Era that posts it every month saying these are the 3 games coming or whatever. It's like, really, there should be a tweet that I hear about it, or more importantly, they should be showing it in directs like Nintendo is.
Completely agree. So I think there's some marketing work Microsoft needs to do.
Hire us.
And also, we know that their sales have been really not so strong with the Xbox consoles. There's also been really, really lots of rumors about their first-party games coming to other systems. Like, there's a lot of I don't know what the word is, anxiety about the future of their actual boxed machines.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, maybe this all leads into that, better marketing.
True, totally, yeah.
But anyways, let's get into the actual games, Derek. Let's talk about what was the first game shown. It was Avowed, right? Was that the first one they jumped into?
Yes.
What did you think about this? You've played more Obsidian games than I have.
I've played Zero, so I don't know if that's true.
Well, I've played Zero too, so
okay.
You played more RPGs than I have.
Yeah, like, and I know they didn't make Fallout 4. I tried Fallout 4 for a little bit. I have looked a lot into Outer Worlds, which I believe they made as well. Mm-hmm. And I think they made New Vegas or some of the team. I
thought you loved Outer Worlds and you played the DLC and.
That's Outer Wilds.
I know. I'm just kidding.
These games don't really interest me as far as the Outer Worlds kind of discussion in the Fallout, in the the Skyrim. These really not that they're super text heavy, but like these really super hardcore RPGs where there's so many dialogue trees and so many characters you can talk to and so many books you can read it completely and like they just don't really.
But Derek, you were saying how you were interested in getting into Baldur's Gate. And that is what this game looks way more approachable in casual audience than Baldur's Gate.
Totally different genre though, where Baldur's Gate is very much like a CRPG, and this is very much like an RPG.
What does this C? What does this C in RPG stand for? Combat RPG, right?
A classic.
Ah.
So CRPGs are like they're trying to emulate Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop, like everything that is D&D.
Okay.
And this is more like an RPG where there's, it's closer to like Skyrim or even Fallout where there's stats you can upgrade, you can get items, whatever.
It's just more like a WRPG, right? Western RPG, right?
Yes, I would say it's more like a Western RPG, sure. And I just, again, maybe you're right. The comparison to Baldur's Gate 3 is correct. I just, for me, Baldur's Gate 3 sounds more interesting. It sounds like the story's more interesting. This just looks... Again, it looks like a Bethesda studio game, and I don't mean that in a good way. I don't like the Bethesda. I don't like the Bethesda studio games. I find that there's so much content and so much quantity of things that the quality is not there. And this game actually looks closer to being good quality. It doesn't do anything for me. I'm watching it. It doesn't excite me. The combat looks really stale and slow for a game that's coming out in 2024. Like the world looks nice, but it's not like mind blowing. Oh, these huge cities or like it just doesn't look like when you're comparing this to so many other RPGs and open world kind of games. I think this falls short in so many categories, and it really. I know you attest to this too. Is gameplay is king to me. Like. Story, world, whatever, those are all fine and great to add, but I want to enjoy the moment to moment. And for me, looking at this game, I'm like, it does not look fun. It looks as fun as Harry Potter Legacy. Like, it's one of those games that, like, sure, there's things happening you can do, but would I actually enjoy doing that? Not really.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I kind of... It's funny because years ago they showed off a single image for Avowed. Do you remember that? Like the single JPEG, yeah. And it looked very different than it looks now. I guess when I think about this kind of Western RPG, especially the fantasy RPG, in my mind it comes from a place of like being massively open. Where I remember the early days of Morrowind on Xbox or Oblivion on Xbox 360, playing them with friends and be like, wow, you can really go anywhere. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, Breath of the Wild has shattered those games, and now that you can't actually go anywhere. But it truly has. Yeah. But at the same time, this game doesn't evoke that to me at all. And I found that the environments looked really small and
totally it's like a
arena based. Yeah,
it's a little area of like 3 huts. I'm like, is that supposed to be a camp? Like I just don't get that grand scale.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like, in games like this now, when I think of RPGs, I look at that mountain on the side of the screen that, looks like it's gating you into that environment, and I think, well, can I climb that mountain? Like, can I actually climb up that mountain and Breath of the Wild it? Probably not.
Exactly, and that's why, you go back to Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, and it's just phenomenal what they did. Or even, as we look at some games that were talked about at the Game Awards, like I think it's called Light No Fire, the ones that No Man's Sky, the next game they're making.
Yeah, they're truly open. That's
like they're literally trying to say you can go anywhere in this world, from tops of mountains to seas to deserts. Like literally anywhere you can fly or run or walk is accessible. And it's like, then you look at exactly like you said, these kind of things in the distance, and it's like, is there just going to be a barrier at some point before I get there that won't even let me get to that mountain in the background?
I wonder what the actual game... Like, I'm very interested in the structure of games, and that's something that It's interesting. These showcases never really do that, or they very rarely do that. Like, show me the structure of the game.
Yeah, like how the day interactions flow through the game.
For all I know, this is level based. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I really,
yeah.
I really don't know. But the thing I will say to its credit is that the way the combat works, where you can like choose loadouts, and the guy talking very, very unenthusiastically. I mean, none of the developers they all sounded fake enthusiasm, but that's just developers.
Yeah.
It sounds like they put a lot of focus into having combat be a little more, I want to say action oriented and not so like menu based. Like, I really don't like the combat in Skyrim. I found it to be actually god awful. And you're spending times in menus, and this game's like, no, we're going to give you loadouts where you have a right hand and a left hand, and you can kind of pair these different abilities. It actually sounded kind of neat. Like that's the approach.
To me, like I agree with you as far as the flow. Like I hate opening up menus and doing that 15 times in one fight. Mm-hmm. And that's why I hate that system in Avowed. It's so stupid. But
well, that's a bit, to me, that's almost like a turn-based thing. I actually like the VAT system because it almost married turn-based with first-person shooter. But that's a whole other discussion.
But you know, back to this point is I just find the combat looked so boring. Like, it just, maybe they just didn't show any cool enemies or cool spells. But I'm like, you know, I just came off the game Forspoken, which has a lot of issues. Don't get me wrong. But the freaking visuals of the spells you can cast in Forspoken is so much cooler than what you're looking at this. It's like, oh, there's a green ring going up and down on the enemy. That means they're being healed. I'm like, is that... It doesn't...
It looked pretty bad. Yeah, I agree. And
it's
yeah,
slow
I agree.
And small, slow and small. Like, they should have shown... If they really want to hype you, they should show a giant rock golem throwing trees at you. And, like, you know, you're casting these giant thunderstorm spells. Like... That's what we're at now in 2024 with the technology we have in these systems, but you know, it looks just so small in scope.
I agree, and like, you know, even the sword fighting combat just didn't really have a lot of crunch to it. It looked like kind of you're just doing RNG to the guys when you hit them, versus like really hitting them and knocking them back. Like, it didn't feel like there was any crunch or blow to the melee.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, I did see some comments on Reset Era, because that's, you know, at the end of the day, you and I are not fans of the genre, so it's not really for us.
No, totally.
But some people were saying, well, you need to compare this type of game to something like Skyrim, where the combat is really that bad. So it's like, yes, this is a jump over Skyrim, but I think what would impress me is, like, if you're going to do a game in first person, I really feel like you need to embrace some of the awesomeness of a first-person combat system, like I mean, I hate to say it, like Halo, Titanfall, Metroid Prime, Doom. Overwatch. Like, I want to be jumping off that mountain and looking down and throwing spells at them and blowing up the thing, and then, you know, jumping over there. Like, I don't just want to come into a small arena and kind of like circle strafe around them and think of what the best wand to use is.
And again, I just want to jump back to, you know, Forspoken for one, but even the game Immortals of
looks
Aveum,
way better. It looks way more interesting.
Like, and that game has flaws too, right? But it looks more interesting for the eyes if you're playing a first person game. So I totally agree with you.
I'm wondering if they will marry the FPS to an RPG properly at some point, because I know people like Borderlands. Even Borderlands is boring. I think it's not interesting. And I'm wondering if they will ever get to that place where the gameplay feels like a Doom, but it does marry the fantasy RPG elements, you know, where you can have a few loadouts, you can upgrade your magic. I don't know, yeah. This game, I guess, at the end of the day, this game just doesn't feel like it has a AAA ambition.
It doesn't. I totally agree with that, and I don't really consider Obsidian, you know, a huge studio with AAA kind of the powerhouse behind them. And I do agree with you where this genre isn't necessarily, at least right now, the same genre as, let's say, Doom Eternal or, you know, any of those kind of faster paced games. But you know, as we said, at the end of the day, like, it just doesn't look very fun. It doesn't have to be the most fast paced game. It doesn't have to be jumping off walls necessarily. But I think it has to do better than what it did. Showing.
Yeah, I agree. And that seems to be the general response I'm seeing. It's very much like mid. Like, it looks like the best it'll kind of be is around an 8 out of 10.
That's what I think too. I think it'll be low 80s.
And I think my prediction was it would be 84 in our Metacritic Fantasy League, and I think if it landed on 84, that's pretty much the best outcome that it's going to have.
Yeah, the only way I could see it opposite is if all the previews came out, let's say in a couple months, and they were like the depth and the amount of things and options you can do. But again, like you're right. Like I just go back to, you're compared to Baldur's Gate 3, and I know they are different, but like Baldur's Gate 3, the options and the freedom you have in that game as far as like choice goes is so immensely gonna blow this game out of the water that this game like doesn't really, I don't know the word, it like doesn't win the trophy for anything.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? Yeah, I can see a best case scenario where, let's say, the game comes out and they're just like, yeah, it's not going to blow you away in a trailer, but it's just really polished, really fun. Those types of fights are really approachable. And then maybe in that level, it just gets like good reviews and it's just like, hey, this game is surprisingly fun. It's solid. It's not necessarily going to blow you away with giant monsters throwing trees at you, but still really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the box art looks amazing though. Everyone's talking about that.
Is it the box art or just
I think the key art's what goes on the box art in this case, right?
Yeah, I think people just assumed it would be the box art, but I don't know if that's confirmed.
Oh, I mean, just awesome artwork. The other thing I'll just mention about this game is that I think the showcase wasn't very strong for it today. Like, none of those things about the skill trees or the quests really looked really that interesting to me. They didn't really show towns. They didn't really show big, like, the environments were kind of like, okay, that's cool, but like, is it wide open structure? Like, show the guy running through these big open fields and jumping off cliffs, and like, show me the big stuff, Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next game they showed, which was I can't remember what was next. It was Hellblade 2. And it got a release date, which leaked, which is May 21st. What do you think about this one, Derek?
So I never played the first one. I think you said you tried it for a little bit. So, and I saw online that they're saying that the game length of the second one is going to be around 8 hours. So I'm like, man, I'm tempted to just try the first one, see if I like it, or try the second one. Just give it a go, because like it does seem like a cool experience. And I just watched it before we started this podcast with headphones on, and the audio is pretty cool and freaking creepy when you hear the voices in her head, like actually in your earphones, like whispering in the back of your head. Sounds creepy. Like, so it is kind of cool. I think it's one of those things where it's an experience, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily going to be a fun game. Like, I don't think they're focusing on gameplay. I think it's just kind of more like a really creative and interesting and well-made, polished, beautiful-looking ride.
Fun is hard to define, because if it's a really, like, let's say you have a fight that's really tense and you almost die and you beat them and you move on, like, that could be anxiety-inducing, but that could also be considered fun. Like, fun's a weird term.
Totally. And like, that game, I think it's called Immortality, that we played last year, the year before, where you're scrubbing through footage and finding that kind of hidden clues. It's like, I found that game fun, but really, is that game fun? Like, I don't know.
I found it more intriguing and almost spooky, that game.
Yeah, but sometimes I almost feel like this might be similar, where that's where you get the fun out of it. Like, I don't think this game's going to have like, the combat is so freaking awesome. I think it's going to be like more of an interactive movie is kind of how I see
I know the motion capture they've done for this game is really impressive. So it might be fun when you're like, oh wow, I put that sword right through his eyeball, like that. There might be parts that make you say wow.
Yeah, I think this game is gonna do well as far as review wise. I don't think it's gonna be as a juggernaut as I think Microsoft is tentpoling it to be. Like, I think they're hoping that this can be an 89 to 93 kind of reviews, and I think it's more like an 80, 85, maybe an 86, or even as low as an 82.
It's hard to say though. It's hard to say because it sounds like with this game, it's exactly what they're trying to achieve. So you can't really come into this and be like, oh, it should have been longer. There should have been RPG elements. There should have been this. Like, at the end of the day, I mean, it seems like they're nailing what they're going for.
That's a good
point. Honestly, the note about the length, I know some people are complaining about it. Oh, how have they worked this long on a game that's only 8 hours? That's a real positive for me. Like, I'm like very excited.
Oh, me
about
too.
That.
I that's what I was saying. totally excited. I'm nothing against that length at all. I want that kind of experience. Like I really wouldn't want a longer game for a game like this.
It's also digital only, Derek.
But again,
so I don't know if they're treating it like the tentpole that you might think it is. It's only going to be digitally released.
I know it's less than standard price. I know it's coming to Game Pass, but it's not a $60 or $70 game. Yeah. It's $50 US. But I just mean the hype I feel like Microsoft is trying to play was trying to make this their peak game of 2024. That's how I interpreted it. Maybe you felt differently. I'm sure at the end of this podcast we'll discuss kind of what Xbox is doing this year and what we think, how they're holding up through this stuff. But I just don't think Hellblade is, how Starfield kind of fell flat. I think Hellblade isn't going to fall as flat. I just don't think it's also going to be, it's not going to be the game that, is going to win Game of the Year.
I agree. I think it just comes down to back to Microsoft's marketing strategy, where it's like, why did you spend so many shows marketing this game when it really is, a linear, story-driven, more of a presentation of a game. I just don't know why they would. They showed it in like 2021, I think, or 2020. Like, it was a long time ago.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed about Xbox games and the ones shown today and the ones we've seen in the past, and I really can't think of an example that doesn't fall into this, is I find they're just slower. Like, I find that there's just a lot of Sony games that just the animation and the combat and the way you move feels fluid and fast. And I just, I think of like Devil May Cry or a Bayonetta kind of game. I know those are action RPGs, but even like Last of Us 2, like it just feels like you're so in control and it can go quick. Where a lot of the games that I feel like I'm watching in Xbox, they can still look good, but it feels very sluggish or very
I will say I do think that might be a little bit of the difference between, Naughty Dog aside, like Western developers, right? Like Microsoft with Bethesda and Obsidian and some of these developers. I guess Ninja Theory is European, but Microsoft invested in those types of companies, right?
Totally, and but I even laugh, and I know this game. I'm pretty sure it's multi-platform, but even the next game that was shown at the Developer Direct today doesn't look anywhere near as fun or fast or fluid as the other Square Enix games or the Stellar Blade. Like, I just find even that game didn't blow me away. Like we ask this question all the time. Like, Xbox, they're showing great games, and I'm sure people would complain if they listen to our podcast. But it's like, where are the games that you just watch and you're like, oh my god, this looks freaking awesome? Like, where are the games where you make that exclamation? I feel like there's no game Xbox ever shows that is that. Like, there's games that are like, wow, this is super cool, super intricate, this is a huge world, there's a lot to do here, but there's never a game that's like melting my face. Like, they should show Doom. Like, show me Doom 3, the new one, after Eternal or whatever, that will melt my face being like, this is what they should be showing.
Hopefully when they show it, it's not 6 years away. So, sometimes I don't want them to show stuff that's really early.
Well, Doom Eternal came out 4 years ago.
Well, yeah, but ID could have been working on something else. And I will say, to your point, I do agree mostly, but I think when Starfield was shown off last year, it looked really impressive in that E3 showing. I think it's also just coming down to how they market, right? Like, Hi-Fi Rush was such a cool looking game, and it's such a great game, and like they shadow dropped it. Like, and meanwhile, Hellblade, had they maybe announced it a year ago with a teaser and only showed us a big gameplay reveal today, could have been so cool if they showed us, that big giant on the beach they showed us 3 years ago, and like kind of packed in all the little teasers into one today. Like, it could have been a better showing, like, and the same thing, like, you just compare to other developers, like, even like you look at Nintendo, where Tears of the Kingdom was announced far in advance, but they really saved a lot of that really impactful stuff for that last trailer. And then you have something like Mario Wonder, which really, by all intents and purposes, doesn't look that awesome from a trailer, in my opinion. And they, at least when they announced it, they're like, oh, it's coming in a few months. And same with like Metroid Dread. It's not like they dragged Metroid Dread's media out for 4 years. When they showed it, it was like, look at this, coming soon. And it's much more impressive than like, oh, we're going to show you a tidbit here and a tidbit there, and then the developer's going to talk about it, and then it comes out and you're like, okay, it's an 8 out of 10, great. Like, it's a marketing thing, I think, a lot of times. And and Avowed, like, I think the fact it's coming this fall, you didn't need to show it at all last E3, or last June. It's really
yeah.
a marketing problem. So yeah,
I think it was also a game lineup problem, and I think they're finally actually having enough that they can not do that. But
no, yeah.
I think
I agree though. They have this kind of like Western RPG, slower pace,
huge
game
expanse
on lock, and it wouldn't hurt them to have like a really wicked fast 60 frame action type of game.
ARPG.
Not even ARPG, just how about a character action game? How about a platformer? How about Crash Bandicoot or what have you? Something like that would be really exciting. Or like, screw it, put the Call of Duty team on a brand new FPS and make a call it like with the same, like, because Call of Duty definitely has that like fast paced interactivity. They can make a really great thing, and they just it's a little weird, but anyways, yeah, I think I agree. Like, I'm not like really looking forward to this game, but there's not a lot this year that I'm really really excited about game wise. And this is one that I definitely expect to download and play. I think it'll get good reviews, and I think I might enjoy it. I think on our new TVs, or well, new now, not new anymore, but I think it'll look beautiful, and I'm excited to play with my headset on. So,
yeah, I agree. Like I'm excited for this game 100-fold more than Avowed personally. Yeah, so I'm gonna enjoy. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So let's briefly talk about the surprise game of the show. Which it's already been announced.
Again, we go back to this marketing. Like this, like what a terrible surprise game. Like, and I mean that in the nicest way. I like Square Enix, and I think go for this game. But like, man, like this is just not a way to like. I'm blaming Xbox, honestly. This is just not the way to drop a surprise game.
Here's the thing,
like,
okay.
Especially,
I think Visions of Mana, outside of my realm of what I like specifically, I think Visions of Mana looks really good. And I think you got to remember, like, this has been a buildup of these like lower tier AA RPGs that they're making. So they had, what was the last one? Trials of Mana came out, and it was very similar to this, and it did well. It got good reviews. It did well. People liked it. Like, there is this market for this kind of I don't know. It's like a different style of RPG, very Japanese but still open, kind of like brain off game, if you will. You know what I mean? Like Sonic Frontiers, like. Not gonna really super captivate you, and this game is full open world with multiplayer. And so when I first saw that they had this here, there's a moment where I go, oh, awesome, this is gonna be on Game Pass. This could be an actual brain off fun game that we can all download and we can all just play a little bit together and do whatever we want, go in any direction. And in some of the animation and the art I thought looked nice, and I thought it looked not bad. But it's not even a Game Pass game. It's multi-platform. Like, so I didn't really understand what it was doing here. It was the only game that's not a Game Pass or an exclusive.
But not totally. But not just doing there, but being the surprise secret drop. Like, again, if you go back to last year with Hi-Fi Rush, which got amazing reviews and came out that day and people loved, it's like, and I agree. Maybe I'm just biased now. I think this game doesn't look good, but maybe it will be good. But even still, as you said, it's like, is this game being multi-platform? It being a series we already know about. It's a game we already have heard about. Why would they choose this out of all the secret drop games? Like, they really should have put this in their lineup and done the secret drop as Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I think that there's these times where it seems like Microsoft is like trying to kind of say, hey, yeah, we do care about JRPGs and Japanese games. Like, we do, see? But it feels like a very halfway effort, if you will. Kind of like when like the Wii got the Conduit. It's not like they're really going full in or like developing paying for the exclusive on something.
But I think it's also fair to, Xbox is a Western studio, like a Western company, or Microsoft, and they're competing against Sony. Like, Japanese developers are going to pick Sony, one, because the platform has more systems, and because it's Japanese. Like, they're a very culture oriented, loyal to their own country studios.
Well, I mean,
so
for good
I just
reason.
think
Though. It's not like there's a lot of things on Xbox that a Japanese gamer would want to buy. Even the PS5 is not doing that well in Japan. So
totally, yeah.
Nintendo's been dominant. What was that? There's an article the other day that Nintendo's been dominating the top 10 for 19 years now.
Yeah,
but anyways, it's beside the point. I think here's the thing. Like, I think this kind of thing is neat. I like to see the developers talk passionately about their game. It actually got me a little more interested in it. But it feels weird that this is the only one. So if you're going to do this kind of like, oh, multi-platform games are going to be spoken about, we're going to get an inside look, show me like at least 3, you know? It just feels it's just weird. But also, this is also the kind of game to me where it's like, this is the kind of thing I want on Game Pass. This, especially the fact that it's multiplayer. Like, will I play it? Probably not. But if it was on Game Pass and it came out and people were raving about it and it was an easy to play online game and it was very easy to jump into a game with someone else and, you know, you, me, Mike, everyone we know with Xboxes, I guess that's it, could buy it or download it for free, we'd be into it, right? It could be a fun one-day play. But I just don't understand. I don't understand why they would show this here in an Xbox thing unless it was either exclusive or coming to Game Pass. Let's talk about the next game. Aura, it was called.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to this one, so you might have to do a bit more talking about this one. I think it is called Aura, though.
Yeah, I believe it's developers who worked on Civilization, like some of the ex-developers. It looks kind of like a Civilization game.
Yeah.
There was that point where the guy popped up in the background. That was hilarious. Did you see that part?
No, I didn't.
Well, it's like the head of the studio is talking, and then this like guy walks behind him to like get a pop from the pop machine. It's like he's not aware that the guy is on the camera. He's like, "Oh, hey, Dan," and then everyone starts laughing, and then Dan like waves, and then he goes, "We started the company in Dan's basement." And I just that part was so endearing, and I saw people on Recent Era say this was the best part of the showcase. Was Dan. But this isn't really my genre of game, and to be honest, I cringe at the idea of playing these games without a mouse. So to me, I'm sure this game would be really great on PC, and honestly, for what it's trying to do, it seems really cool. But I don't know. I can't speak to this genre, but it really does look like it could be like the premium Civilization style game. They put a lot of work into it. The art style's great. It's kind of just like, you know, you advance through the eras as a civilization, and basically it's like kind of like playing Risk, I think. Like you take over and yada yada.
Yeah.
But it looks cool. It looks cool.
Yeah. I remember seeing the original trailer. I can't remember when it was shown. It might have been E3 or the Summer Games Fest or something last year. And the trailer didn't show much, but I thought it was going to be cool because I sometimes do like these kind of sim builders, and I played Civ 5 a bit, and I played some RTSs and things like that. I want to look at this game. I really can't comment on it because I didn't really see anything about it. But if you're saying, it has the potential of kind of redefine, I don't know if redefining is the right word, but pushing the boundaries and being the next big thing in this genre, like I'm really interested for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that if you go back in time to the 90s, these kind of games, Microsoft has always been involved in gaming, really, like since the early 90s. Like they're not really that new to this. And games like Flight Simulator and RTS games and Civilization style games, like I guess RTS would be the name. Like this is their kind of game, and even like Mech Assault was their series, and first person shooters are now kind of big for them. So when I think about Microsoft, I really do my brain kind of goes to that space of like they are a PC style game developer, or that's their brand. Like Nintendo's more easy to get into, multiplayer, bouncy platformers. Sony's more third person shooters and more interactive kind of storytelling of games. Where Microsoft really is more that kind of Western PC style audience, Western RPGs.
Totally.
So just whether or not those games are the hottest new games that people want.
And first person shooters.
Now, I think they got into it. Yeah. Now. But But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much to say about this game. It looks good, I guess. I just don't think for you and I very much. I mean, at least me, we're console gamers, right? So this doesn't really, to me, this is much more like a PC space of a game.
No, I totally agree with that too. I have Civ 6 on the Switch, and it's doable. Like, so I played games on the controller before like this, but I agree. Like the mouse and keyboard just opens up so many more options and quick buttons and quick menus, and just having the mouse as the cursor. And I just don't play PC games, so you're right. Like I won't ever play this game probably. Is this game coming to PC too though?
Well, everything on Game Pass is on both.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like there's nothing that's just on Xbox. Like there's no such thing as an Xbox exclusive. They're on Game Pass.
There are PC exclusives.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's PC exclusives on Game Pass, but not.
Oh,
Xbox.
I don't know if there are PC.
There have been. I remember reading about those a couple of years ago.
Oh, I mean, I could be totally wrong. I mean, maybe something.
I think there's very few. Let's put it that way.
I think there's games that are made by, let's say, Red Dead Redemption 2. I don't think ever came to PC, did it? And that was on Game Pass. So I think there are edge case examples, but I believe that every single Microsoft developed game or published game is on both.
Okay.
But yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, like when you think about games that really excite the current landscape of gamers. Era is not one of those games. It's just not. It doesn't have mass appeal. It doesn't have boundary pushing interactivity or gameplay. It might be really, really cool for that audience, but I think we're living in a world where the third person and first person action game are kind of where the excitement comes from. Maybe fighting games a little bit. Maybe like RPGs a little bit, but even something like Baldur's Gate didn't really set the world on fire till it came out, right? It wasn't like that game showcased super well either.
Yeah, I would also, I know this is considered third person in a way, but like side scrolling, especially Metroidvania kind of games are there's some big ones, Yeah,
2D side scrollers, yeah, and even like an Atlas style game, like the Unicorn Heroes or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah,
and Persona, like those kind of games have now entered the Zeitgeist. So
even some isometric kind of third person games too.
Yeah, but none of the games we've talked about so far.
No, yeah.
But anyways, let's talk about the last game, because that to me was the most exciting thing about it, and the thing I was the most excited to see. And this is something that we've talked about for a while, Derek, because you and I have always speculated, well, maybe next year it's Indiana Jones. Maybe next year it's Indiana Jones. And we've been talking about it for a while because it's been on our radars. And I think most people didn't expect it this year. And here it is, full showcase, first time seeing it, big reveal coming this year. What did you think, Derek? What did you think?
Honestly, I thought it was okay. like the hype for me was real. Like I like Indiana Jones, and I thought the music looked awesome, and I thought they really did nail Indiana Jones. Like I think it looks like Indiana Jones. The things he does is what Indiana Jones would do. The atmospheres, the storyline, the way he talks, and I think everything just kind of oozes Indiana Jones for sure. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is the gameplay, the parts that we saw, didn't look that maybe fully polished, or also doesn't look that fully good. It didn't look bad. And again, I played, I think every single Wolfenstein game, or at least every single Wolfenstein game from PS4 onwards. So I like machine gun games. Like they make good games. But their other games are like these blast-tastic kind of, crazy. You're going with two Tommy guns fighting giant mech Nazi. Like it's crazy and fast paced. And this game is very different style for them, where it's slower, there's less enemies, it's more puzzle, more stealth. And I don't know that this game captures those kind of genres in a fun way, because I don't know if they necessarily have experience of what makes those genres fun. So I'm not looking at this game and saying this looks awful in any way. I just didn't look at this game and say, yep, now they've really knocked it to the park. Like I think it looks solid. Like I think it'll be a solid 78 to 82. Like that's kind of how I felt about it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I largely feel the same. I mean, I thought it looked good. I just it didn't blow me away.
That's what same.
And I think that the thing about it that's hard to gauge is that these trailers don't show enough of an extended period of gameplay. And I mean, they don't even show 5 seconds in a row. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really getting understanding of the structure of the game. And I imagine it's level based.
I think so too.
But it's even the action. It's kind of like, I see you punching one guy. I see you using the whip on 2 guys. But like, show me, I'd really like to see maybe even like just a 15-second area with combat. So I get a little more of a sense of how multiple enemies works, right?
Totally. So there's 2 things that stood out for me. Is there's one scene where Indy is switching to his revolver to shoot the guy.
Yeah, and the guy's just standing there with the gun.
And I was like, well, is that supposed to look good? And the other thing that really, and I understand why they're doing this, and they kind of explained it in the developer direct, but I do not like it at all, is the switch between third person and first person. There's a moment where he's swinging on the rope as a third person, and it switches to the first person camera to drop down and hit him. And I'm like, that would ruin the game for me. Like, I do not want a game like that.
Well, I'm also just kind of like, well, what's the value even switching to that first person view? I mean, we saw how it was handled in Metroid Prime with the grapple beam. What's the value of me seeing third person? Do I need to see his surrounding environments? Is there ever a scene where I'm swinging and I need to choose which thing to swing to in third person? Like,
so here's what I would say. I think third person is almost required in a way, because of how iconic Indy's look is. And I would say that same with Samus, where she has such an iconic look, but now, like, Indy's whole thing is his look, in a way.
So there's a big argument going on right now on the internet. You've probably seen it. Is like, people really wanted this to be third person. Some people are happy it's first person. Some people say, what do you expect? It's machine gun games. And just like you just said, the argument for third person is, well, this is a character that we all know and love.
Yeah, like, I want to see the character, exactly.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Metroid Prime, which is a good example, because when that was announced to be first person, people were really upset. But Metroid Prime has this kind of like alien immersion to it, where you feel like you're just behind this glass, especially the first one when it was very story with
it's such a different style of first person shooter HUD, you know what I mean?
And also it's one big world and you're exploring like isolated depths of scary places. Like, it's a very different feeling, where this is
than
more
most
like
first persons.
You want to see Indy throwing punches and shooting enemies. I was surprised that well, I'm not surprised, because I figured it'd be first person, knowing the developer.
Yeah, me too. But I think they should have just stuck to first person and owned it. You know what I mean? They should have made third person as it happened only in the cutscenes. You know, like, have all those quips, have all those moments, have all those epic cutscene moments of like him standing on a rooftop behind a sunset or something cool. But make the gameplay just frickin' first person and just own it. Like, you know how to do it, sell it, make it work. Like, you know, Metroid, it's kind of like one of those things where commit to what you're good at and know you're good at it. Where, again, you go back to Metroid Prime, like, they weren't afraid. It was very different, but they owned it. They said, no, this is how we're doing it, and it works so well because...
Well, you do go to third person for the ball form.
For the ball, true. But even that, the transition works so well there, where at least the one little clip we saw in this, like, it doesn't... It feels jarring. It feels like you're just...
And it's also, the other example they showed was like, look, he's climbing something with his thing. And I'm kind of like, well, they did it with Dishonored. I mean, I know it's a different developer. Like,
no, yeah.
Why is it so hard to show someone in first person just climbing up a wall? Like, it's not
did you also
that
notice? Did you also notice how slow he climbed? That I was like, again, Machine Gun Games is known for these high paced craziness, and Indy isn't. Indy's a methodical kind of thing, and I don't know. Like, again, it looks good, and I think there's some cool moments, like when he jumps across the plane. Like, that's gonna be cool. But I don't know. I don't think that their skill set fully translates to what they're making.
The thing I was wondering about the plane part is, like, that's clearly not going to be an open-ended thing. It'll be like someone be like, okay, climb on top and jump across, and you're just waiting there on the end of the plane. And it's like, okay, run and jump, Indy. And then you run and jump, and it's basically a cutscene when you jump. Like, it didn't feel like completely interactive.
It's not like a choice. That's like, it's going to be a part of a scripted event.
Yeah. I mean, I was wondering about this before when they announced Indiana Jones, because it kind of is one of those things where you can't just give him an Uzi and tell him to mow down enemies. Like, it's just not that kind of, well, kind of could be, I guess, but
it's not, and that's why I'm saying Machine Gun is so a little bit out of their element here, where, you know, like the whip stuff, like, I get it, whip is part of Indiana Jones, but you really got to nail the whip. Like, it doesn't look that good. Like, the way the characters fly and the way they interact after getting latched onto, like, I don't know, it doesn't scream amazing to me.
I mean, the only thing that would really... The thing I'm hoping for is that... I mean, there's a game called Chronicles of Riddick on Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
And it did this kind of thing really well, where, like, it was a first-person adventure game. And it dealt with, like, you know, little puzzles. And, like, it just was really cool because you're escaping from a prison. So it's like, you got to get this... You got to, like, take out this one prison guard around the corner and then get the key. And, like, it was really interesting and neat how they did it. So if they can really... make this a very polished game.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it being a fun game. Like, you know, there might be like I have a feeling there'll be some vehicle stuff. There'll be a good mix of light puzzles.
Like, I guarantee you I'll play this game and I'll play it to the end. Like, I really am excited for this game. I just don't think I was blown away the way I was hoping. Like, I kind of reflect on this whole direct, you know, now that we're kind of talking about the last game. And it made me realize that all these games look quite good. Like, none of them look terrible. But I don't think any of these developers are Microsoft's top-of-the-line developers. Like, they're all kind of one notch below that, if that makes sense.
I mean, who are their top developers?
Well, you know, like, I originally would have argued Bethesda and maybe the company that makes... the Halo games, like 343, I think it is, and maybe the company that makes Gears of War. Like I think they have a few that are
Epic. The original Gears of War by Epic Games, or Coalition that made the lesser ones. You know,
I mean, you know, they're developers better than I do, and you're right. There's not many of them for Xbox. I just don't. When I think
5 was great.
When I think of my favorite games that are now that were maybe by developers now owned by Xbox, I wouldn't list any of the developers that were shown today, right? Like, I think they all make solid games, but when I think of the best companies at Xbox, I don't think of these companies, personally.
Well, yeah, I mean, Ninja Theory's rather small, and Obsidian's not a mega big developer either. So these aren't necessarily like Square A tier.
And Square Enix's B team, and even Machine Gun Games isn't a huge company, like a huge AAA company.
You know, yeah, this one's weird, and it's also coming out soon. So it's like some of that combat stuff just didn't really look interesting. I'm surprised they didn't show at least a little bit of shootout stuff. Like, show us some gameplay.
Show us entering a room, and it has crates and a train track, and you know, some rope things and some whatever, and show us a good 2.5 minutes of Indy being in that room taking out guards. Just show us so we know, oh, is it more stealth? There's some cool things you can do. Oh, there's interactive environments that are really important. Oh, you can just go in guns blazing, whip everyone around. Like, show us some things that really get us the sense of how fun this is going to be. I don't need to see 4 seconds. I don't need to see 4 seconds of him picking up a shovel and hitting him in the back of the head. Like that, or you know, unlocking a key to a door. Like that, just
like putting a spin wheel on the wall.
Yeah, it's like, is that really, especially for a game that's coming out in, I don't know, 8 months or whatever it is, or sorry, they didn't date it. It was the summer, right?
Yeah,
but it's like, sell the game. I don't know. I don't even know.
I would have been more excited if they had just followed one of the movies too. Well, it's hard to I mean,
I think the mystery the mystery sounds kind of cool to me. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in
the story. To be honest, the story looks better than the last movie, Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
And I know people are complaining about Troy Baker being the voice of Indiana Jones. I didn't even mind when I saw the initial trailer. I go, oh, the guy's doing a decent job sounding like Harrison Ford. I'm okay with it.
I thought it sounded great. I had no issues with that at all.
A lot of people are complaining.
I thought, again, the lines, like as far as the character's script and the way the inflection and the actual, I don't know if cinematography is that right word, but like the way this cutscenes were kind of, like it just, I think it really hit, like I said at the beginning, it feels like Indiana Jones. Like it really does. They nailed the spirit of what Indiana Jones is really well. I just don't know if they've also nailed the gameplay is good part.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I can also see the game opening up where like there's actual really cool mix of gunplay and whip platform action, and maybe there's a section of the game where like all these skeletons rise up and it's like a really cool shooter and you get grenades and
Or
you jump
snakes,
on a mine
snakes falling through
and
the walls, or yeah.
you're going on a raft that's going down a waterfall and stuff. Like there could be a lot of I think if they really polish it, it could be really just a really good licensed game.
Yeah, they do a lot of like what's the I forget the word. I always forget this word. It's like the segments of games that are like very scripted.
Scripted segments.
Yeah. Sorry, I have an actual word for it.
Set pieces.
Set pieces. So if they just have non-stop set pieces, make this game a linear, tight, well-polished game. Doesn't need to be crazy long. I don't make it any sort of open world. Don't make it any sort of, tons of side quests or side paths. Make it a really tight set piece after set piece after set piece. Like, again, the rafts, make it so the rafts, and then you go off a river and you have to jump and swing to a tree branch, and then you land on something else and you're sliding down a mudslide, and then Nazis are driving on the side and you jump on their car and you're fist fighting three. Like, make it just adrenaline packed in a way that's not 70 enemies, but it's just like every moment is like it never lets up.
And also they mentioned that there's in the developers chatting, they talked about how there's optional puzzles. So like there are main pathway puzzles, but there's optional puzzles with secret ways. And I thought being more open-ended would be cool. And I think he mentioned something about you can go in guns a-blazing, but there's other ways to deal with it too. So I thought if maybe they bring in a little bit of like that Deus Ex style of like, oh, we got to get inside the facility. Can I beat this guy up on the side, steal his uniform, and cheat my way in?
But that's what they said. It's very almost like a Dishonored in a way, where they said you'll get the most fun and feel most like Indiana Jones if you don't go guns a-blazing. If you go in and try to be creative with what you can do. That's what they said. They said try to do what you think you can do and try to get interesting around it. But they didn't really show it. So I just don't know if that's all kind of superfluous talk, but I need to see more.
I am actually pretty excited about this game. The more I think about it,
out of all of them, I'm the most excited for this. I'm hesitant still. I wasn't sold.
It didn't blow me away, and it didn't blow me away. But I'm confident it'll be solid, and I think it could be really good. And I also think, in the landscape of first-person shooters right now, it might be really neat to have like a level-based first-person shooter that isn't following the status quo of other types of shooters, right? That are like, everything's going the Destiny route, or they're going, to kind of Doom linear level-based route. But I mean, I think it'd be really cool to get like these kind of like GoldenEye. GoldenEye had these like levels that they weren't all about just linear run and gun. You could do missions in different orders. A little more open, a little more creative, involving a little bit of that Metroid Prime platforming puzzle stuff. I think this could be actually a surprise hit.
Yeah, I think this game will be well liked. Like I have no doubt it's going to be a solid game. I just wasn't blown away.
Yeah. Before we get into talking about like Microsoft's overall year plan, what does it take to blow us away anymore? And I sometimes wonder, like, are we desensitized a little bit? Where it's like, do I need to, like, what? The last time I was really blown away by a gameplay showcase was Tears of the Kingdom. And I guess Spider-Man 2 had really great graphics, but it seems like it's becoming harder and harder to really blow me away. And I mean, even at the Game Awards, like, even we talked about the game from the No Man's Sky developers, like, even that looks cool. Yeah. It looks like it has potential, but nothing has really blown me away. And nothing on the horizon for games right now is actually blown me away and makes me convinced it'll be a AAA great game. Like, nothing. Literally nothing.
So
Final Fantasy VII, it looks amazing. That's the only thing I will say. The new Final Fantasy looks incredible, but that's about it.
So I will say this is, I think part of that issue is kind of what's happening with, the Marvel movies is they're so expensive and so blockbuster and so money focused that they have to focus group them to death, where there's very little innovation of like, let's do this crazy idea. There's very few companies still doing that as far as a AAA level, where like Zelda, the idea of like ascending through anything or being able to build anything, like that's so hard and so time, and it can have so many issues that most companies won't touch that. Like if you think about, 40 big games from PlayStation and Xbox especially, most of the games at the bare bones skeleton are the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? You got RPG elements, story, good graphics, kind of somewhat open world, set pieces. Like they're not really changing the formula. So in that sense, I totally agree with you. Where it's like nothing's blowing me away because they're all kind of the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, it's like the more money, the safer they have to be.
Yeah, and I will slightly disagree with you in the sense that, one, neither of us have played Baldur's Gate 3, and
I've seen a lot of it extensively with my friend. I've seen hours of it.
Okay, so maybe you'll have a better opinion than me. But what I was also going to say is, I think the indie scene has a lot of games that do kind of blow me away, at least for the not, the AAA level, obviously, but blow me away as far as like, man, this is a wicked idea.
Plucky Squire looks like one of my most wanted games.
You just dropped the exact game I was about to say. Is the Plucky Squire is like, that's a wicked idea, and I haven't really seen that idea, and like way to really try something new. The other one I was thinking of is Baba's You. It's like puzzle game, but like way to totally push the boundaries of you have an idea and you just run with it. And I really like and admire games that don't play it safe like that and really try to find a new genre or find a new way of how games could be thought of. Or Immortality is a great example too. But as far as the AAA, the 6 big publishers, they have to make their bottom lines, right? Like they really have to be safe with this game's got to sell 8 million by this time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They stick to first person, third person, story driven, combat, guns, or fantasy. It's like there's nothing too crazy about them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also is just because game development is just hard. But it does feel like, for me, that you're right, the indie space is awesome and will continue to be interesting, but just when it comes to that AAA space, it just feels like I'm less, things aren't blowing me away as much anymore, and it's kind of sad, right? It's like, what could Microsoft have done to blow us away? Truly, like, what could they have they had a single game all generation that's really mind-blowing? Maybe Forza Horizon?
I don't give a lot of faith to Xbox games, period. So,
but I also wonder, what on the Sony camp has really, quote-unquote, blown people away? I mean, we've got an iterative sequel to Spider-Man and God of War. We've gotten Returnal, I know you love, but I don't think that blew anyone away till they played it. So what's a Sony showcase that's been like, whoa? I mean, maybe Final Fantasy VII Rebirth looks really... I mean, that's had an impressive showcase. I know it looks really good. It looks like it's everything people want it to be. But has there been anything in this next generation camp that has been like, from the showcase to the release, been that game? Like, I mean, Elden Ring, maybe, I guess?
Yeah, Elden Ring's a really good choice.
I mean, Resident Evil 8
going through
maybe was...
Yeah, I'm going through a list of games that really, I would say, yeah, Resident Evil 8's not terrible. But yeah, I think Final Fantasy VII's a good choice. I think Elden Ring's a good choice. And I think Tears of the Kingdom is a great choice. Like, you're right. I don't really think anything else... The Last of Us Part 2, I guess. I mean, that's...
But that was 2020, yeah. I mean, that was... Yeah. But I think it really just comes down to game development is hard, and it's just not going to be as common that we're blown away all the time. Where maybe back on the GameCube and the PS2, there could be multiple games a year that were really, really cool and pushing the boundaries. But you think about it, like, we've got games like the Star Wars Fallen Order, or whatever it's called, Jedi Fallen Kingdom, whatever the hell it's called. And it's like, by all intents and purposes, it's an extremely impressive looking game. It's got like wicked lightsaber action. It's got all the things you could possibly want. And I watch it and I go, that looks boring. And I played the first one and I go, this is boring. Like, I don't like the level design. I don't like the story. So it's just kind of like, for a game to really impress me, it has to be what? The Last of Us 2 or Tears of the Kingdom, which are like mind-meltingly good games.
So, it's kind of funny. Like, I think those games, they're some of the best games of all time. And I played Jedi Survivor, and I really didn't like it. And, I go back to what I said earlier today on this podcast. Gameplay is king. You know, and I find some companies just don't get it. Like Jedi, cool. I like the Star Wars thing. I like you can wield different lightsabers. I like you going to different planets or whatever, and that's all cool. But the gameplay, like you said, it actually really isn't that fun. It kind of gets repetitive. It gets boring. It's like, man.
The platforming plays itself.
Yeah, well, the platforming actually isn't too bad. Like it's fun. The platforming, I'd give it like a 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But the graphics and kind of the story and the upgrades and all this kind of stuff, it doesn't trump the feeling of pure joy you have when, I don't want to say The Last of Us because that game's kind of dark, but, Tears of the Kingdom, it's like those games are they're really fun to play. Like, I'm trying to think of games where, the moment you move the controller around, like even before you fight the first enemy, it just feels good to move that character around. And I think Nintendo does such a good job of not just with Tears of the Kingdom that we're talking about, but even like Mario, even, I just beat Kirby Forgotten World.
Yeah.
And it just feels fun to play and move around. And that game's a pretty slow game with not a lot of controls. It's kind of a shallower game as far as control mechanics. Yeah, but it still feels good. Like it just feels fun and good. Where other games, after a while, I'm like, man, this game just got so dull. So I don't know. To me, gameplay is king, and I find AAA's these days just don't care about it.
I think a lot of the publishers they think make the best graphics you can for the trailer. But I think there are, like you said, something like the Indiana Jones showcase today. I think it would have been a lot more beneficial to show us a slice of the game the same way Aonuma showed us the slice of Tears of the Kingdom. Remember when he just walked around the plateau and merged things?
I wish almost every game did that. Like, I understand the time to have a 1-minute sizzle reel, like a 1-minute like trailer, but it should almost, I almost believe they should all do the kind of Nintendo Treehouse style where show us, 3 to 5 minutes of trailers of your 5 games today, Xbox, but then have an hour after, or show 20 minutes or 5 minutes even of gameplay of each game. Don't even have to link it to the same channel, like whatever. Just so if anyone that wants to be, get more information about the game that was interested from the trailer can actually see what the gameplay looks like.
Yeah, and
I have no idea. I have no idea how it's going to play.
And with something like Indiana Jones that's coming out this year, vaguely this year, which definitely means fall. Let's be honest.
I think they said summer, but yeah.
So, yeah, right.
I think they said summer 2024.
No, they said 2024. They didn't say
one
year.
of the games was summer 2024.
Yeah, the Mana.
Okay.
So the game must be basically done, right? It's not like the game is like still so rough they can't show us a 5-minute slice of a level. And I think that would just have given me a much more faith to be like, oh wow, there is like a mechanic for the fist fighting, and there is a cool way that the levels connect to each other through set pieces, and these levels are bigger than they look, and there are multiple ways to approach things, and it could have really shown me something cool. But I think, the publishers think, oh, show them a little bit of everything, show them the snowy bridge, and show them the plane, and show them an explosion, and show them a punch and a whip, and a this and a that. And it's like, well, no, I actually want to know that. Like, that doesn't impress me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, Derek, let's move on.
Okay.
Do you think that Microsoft has another big exclusive for this year? I mean, they have Towerborn, but that's like small.
I would say maybe Call of Duty. I mean, a new Call of Duty game, I guess.
But exclusive. I mean, like a big exclusive that like.
No, I think we've seen what we've seen.
Yeah, I think we're looking at Avowed and Indiana Jones as our holiday thing. I don't think we're going to see Fable. I don't think we're going to see a Rare game. I don't think we'll see a Gears of War. So that I really think that's it.
like I think
pack it up.
I mean, yeah, like Redfall came out pretty recently, and Tango had High Five Rush and Ghostwire Tokyo. Yeah. I don't think there's any studio that really has a game like and that. It's kind of the question I was going to bring up earlier. I wonder what their 2025 lineup will be.
Well, I think they're hoping for Fable, maybe Perfect Dark, maybe a Rare game.
Yeah, like I'm sure there are games. I'm more kind of curious about that speculation because we're kind of this year now. It's kind of like, oh, we have release dates for Hellblade 2. We have release date for Avowed. Some of their big games that we've been waiting around for years for are finally coming this year. So now we're kind of almost clean slate. Like you're right, you just named a couple of them. but we haven't seen anything from those. But we have sort of a clean slate for 2025 of what could potentially be out there. And they have so many studios at this point that, who knows if they're working on a new Blizzard game? Who knows if they're working on a new, the Evil Within 3? Like
that was, I'm sure there's a lot. Evil Within 3 is the type of game I could see coming this year still, like announced in June, coming in November.
I would love that. I just don't think it will because of the games they've worked on recently.
Tango wasn't what's it called? I guess because they also did Ghostwire Tokyo, right?
Yeah, and Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, last E3 they showed a lot of stuff. They showed the game, that kind of like Louisiana Southern game. They showed the Clockwork RPG game. They showed a lot of different things that you'd hope that showing them in mid 2023 would mean a release by the end of 2025.
True, and I guess they have the like the Ori company, Moon Studios, their new game.
That comes out this year, but that's multi-platform.
Oh, I didn't know it was multi-platform. I thought Moon Studios was
no, they just published those few games for them, like second-party style.
Oh, okay, I didn't know
that. Now, before we get into games we've been playing, what would you give this showcase out of 10?
I don't know. I'd give it a high 7, maybe an 8, maybe low 8.
Okay, I'd give it a 7. Very solid. And now another question for you, like, because we've dealt with Microsoft. Sony has a showcase coming up. Sony also has.
Do they? I didn't know they did.
They have I thought it was leaked, or people talked about how they have a what's it called? They have a different name for it. Sony Direct.
Yeah, one guy said, "Oh yeah, they usually have one around this time of year, so expect one."
Well, we can expect a Nintendo Direct and a Sony showcase within the next 3 months. I think it's safe to say.
Okay, sure.
Now, does Sony have a strong year? I mean, on the other hand, we look at Sony and we think, well, they have Final Fantasy coming. So that's exclusive. They have Rise of the Ronin coming. That's exclusive. That looks cool. Does Sony have a big tentpole game for the second half of the year, do you think? Ghost of Tsushima 2. The next game from Santa Monica Studios. They've been so quiet.
I don't think Studio Santa Monica. I think Ghost of Tsushima is possible. I think whether this is going to be a good game or not, I think Ben Studio the guys that made Days Gone, they could have a game in the pipes.
Okay, Days Found.
And I think so. I guess Sucker Punch is Ghost of Tsushima. I'm just trying to go through all their developers. I think Blue Point Games could have a game on the horizon. I think Housemarque could have a game at least to be shown.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think honestly, Ghost of Tsushima 2 or a game by Sucker Punch could be the next game coming this year. I'm sure they have at least one big first party game coming, because otherwise you're right, they have exclusives, but they have enough developers that there should be at least a game coming this year that we haven't really heard about.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean, I think Sony can rest on some of their laurels. I think Silent Hill 2 is exclusive to PS5. Metal Gear Solid 3 will be on everything. That's supposed to come this year, so they can't.
I mean, Final Fantasy 7 alone is strong.
Will be big, yeah. I'm really disappointed that Microsoft nor Sony has had the balls to make a platformer, because I can only imagine how amazing and big a new Jak and Daxter, a new Sly Cooper, a new Banjo with this next gen power. Like, come on.
Yeah, I just think the reason I think that is they know that the market for platformers, like the corner of the market that owns platformers and the people that buy the systems that want to play platformers are buying the Switch. They know that the majority of people, and I know a lot of people that own a PlayStation 5 would play a platformer, but I think for them, again, when it comes to those risks and playing it safe, they know that their people that buy the PlayStation 5 are buying for certain games. They're buying for sports games. They're buying for the Call of Duty first-person multiplayer games and Fortnite. And then they're also buying for these third-person narrative-driven games. There are people that would buy platformers. I just think they also know that those platformers would just do better on the Switch, and they don't want to compete with them.
True. It comes a point, right, where you just get tired of the same games, and you make a really good game, it will last forever, and they'll be able to make remasters forever. And it comes a point where, like, I'm not going to care to play Gears 4 when there's 12 Gears, or Halo 7 when there's 12 Halos 20 years from now, but I might want to play that game that really stands out as an exclusive big 3D platformer. I mean, I know they're just not very. It's one of my favorite genres, and there's just not enough of them. And I think that the next game that will Tears of the Kingdom us is going to be the next 3D Mario for Switch 2.
Yeah, I agree.
I think,
unless Hollow Knight Silk Song comes first.
I think Silk Song still is going to look great. It's going to be great, but I don't think it's going to blow us away at a trailer level. Where I think the next Mario.
I think it's gonna.
Oh yeah, maybe. I think it'll be like, this is going to be amazing. Like, my eyes are melting and stuff. But it's still. I think the next Mario 3D is going to do stuff that we can only dream of. Like, I think it's going to be like Mario Galaxy, where you can fly to any planet you want, kind of stuff.
I think it'd be cool if they had the kind of. I mean, I know it won't be quite on par, but if they could make a Mario game that had the same feel as like the most recent Ratchet and Clank, where it like looks like that crazy, close to Pixar level, just so much detail, and that would be cool for me.
I think the next Mario, just throwing a prediction out there, will not be called Mario Galaxy 3. But it'll be some idea of Mario Galaxy 3 where it's basically the open world Mario, which they toyed with Bowser's Fury, except you'll be able to fly, and with the new Switch 2 and with the SSD load speeds, you will be able to fly extremely fast to other planets and planetoids. And each planet will have its own little platforming puzzles, and it'll blow people away when they see Mario running around a planet, do a triple jump, and then super fly to a planetoid in like 5 seconds, and it's an ice planet that's huge. And like, I think they're gonna go for that. I think they're gonna try to Breath of the Wild Mario.
That'd be cool. Anyways, we can have a whole nother time speculating about Mario.
Let's talk about Mario. Okay. Anyways, we only have a little bit of time left, Derek. Let's talk about what we've been playing over the last, I guess, bit. I've got 2 major games I want to talk about, or no, I'll talk about 4 games. What do you got? You go first.
So 2 go to 4. Okay, I'm gonna just quickly name mine off, and we can talk about them if you want. So I played Forspoken. I played Jedi Survivor. I played Kirby the Forgotten Land, and I'm currently playing Midnight Suns. And I think that's everything. And I played a bit more Remnant 2, and I'm gonna play some Evil West this weekend, but I haven't got to that. But those are the kind of the 4 games I played. Okay,
well, why don't you tell us about, because I've been telling you to play Kirby forever. Why don't you tell me about your final experience with Kirby?
Yeah, overall, I really like Kirby. It's kind of what I expect with most Kirby games, where it's fun, it's enjoyable. It is a little bit shallow and simple, and it's kind of just a relaxing ride. Still enjoyed it. Once I was done with it, I was happy to kind of move on from it. But I enjoyed every level. I thought, the levels are well made. I thought the power-ups were fun, the bosses were fun. There's never a moment in that game where I was frustrated or didn't like it or even bored, as simple as the game is. But there also, on the other side, there's never a moment in that game where I was like, this is freaking awesome. This is so cool.
Well, the end boss I thought was really awesome.
The final...
No, well, just the main final boss where you become a school bus and everything.
Yeah, that was cool. I agree. Like that was a cool moment. Overall, I liked it. I'd give it an 8 or maybe 8.5. Like, it's a great game, but I don't know.
It's a little small in scale, but I love the music, and I also love the main town. It's got a lot of charm to it, where it feels like you're in a little bit of a world.
Yeah, that's a great word. Charm and polish. Like, I think those are great words for it.
And upgrading the weapons to their highest end. Like, there's the nuke weapon. There's some weapons that are hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you experimented with that, but cool. Yeah, I'll talk about one of the games that I recently bought and returned, which is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora.
Okay.
This is one of those games where I can't even fathom how unfun it is. How did they make a game so big? So it's big. It's honestly, I will say, as far as the jungle goes, it is the best jungle graphics I've ever seen. It looks very cool. Like, you're like, whoa! The foliage is so dense. Like, there's so many types of plants. There's all these little bugs and creatures and stuff. It's really, really cool. Like, just kind of the visual feast, let's say. But the gameplay is very, very not fun to me at all. Like, to the point where they give you the options turn off certain parts of the gameplay, like when you are scavenging, let's call it, or collecting, looting, whatever. There's always a mini game involved with it, and it's painfully unfun. And it's you have to basically hold down the trigger a little bit, but not too much. You got to tilt the analog stick just a bit too much, but you're constantly collecting. And it's all these quests involve collecting, so it's okay, well, I just want to press a button as I run by things, like I'm in Zelda. So I end up turning it off completely. The combat is also incredibly unfun. And there's parts of the game you're like, oh, cool, there's a big area I can take over the enemies here. No, you can't. You're not strong enough. And it's like, okay, am I supposed to play stealthy? Because if I slowly take guys out, then all of a sudden they recruit them again under a certain timeline. But I also can't go in guns a-blazing and play it like a shooter because you simply can't do it. You simply will get shot twice and die. So it becomes a thing where like, oh, I guess I got to come back way later in the game when I've like RPG statted up a lot. But there's just like, it's not fun. Like the combat has no crunch, no feeling. It doesn't make sense why you're mowing. You get a gun and the gun even feels weak. It's and then it's like, oh, you have to sneak in here and then you have to do this thing with this computer terminal. Okay, well, you got to switch to this special computer hacking gun in the middle of everyone shooting you. That's not fun. Let's do a little maze mini game while everyone's shooting at you. And also the controls are really weird. Like, oh, you want to switch your gun? Well, hold down left bumper and then bring the analog stick to up position. Or it's like, so I played for hours and did not grasp the controls. Not to mention one of the opening missions glitched on me and didn't trigger, so I had to restart the game. I had to Google why it wasn't working, restart the game, and realize that, oh, I got to go to this, and because the button prompt wasn't coming up when I did my detective mode and saw the footsteps. And everything you have to find in this game is so hard to see because the game is so dense. It's sad too. It's like you go to a little town area, let's call it, and there's moments you're like, wow, like every character's so detailed. The music is beautiful. The sound design is great. Oh, but when you walk into town, you hear the voices of like 5 guys every time you walk by the Navi. Like it triggers their dialogue cycle. So like the dialogue cycles are all off. So you're just like, it's like janky. And then you realize that like you're triggering missions and it's like not clear where the mission is. And it's just like, I was just actually frustrated because I got to this point where I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to run and do what I want to do. And then you realize like, oh, I've got to hunt these animals for this quest. Well, that's boring. And then, oh, and I got to talk to him, then trigger this, but then he goes somewhere else and I don't know where he walked to. And there's like, you go to a town and you talk to someone and it's like, okay, like they're going to walk you. You have to do this thing where they walk you through all the stations of the town. But if you turn away from them, like you lose them and then you're lost. Like there's something wrong with the fundamentals of this game that people could study because it's like overly, the graphics are so good and so detailed. You can't see anything. And I got to this point where I said that I'm not having fun. This is not fun. And I couldn't fathom how a game with such good graphics was so incredibly unfun, but there you have it. Terrible game. I give it a 5 out of 10.
I appreciate the 5-minute rant on a game you didn't like.
Yeah, did not like.
Yeah. Like honestly, you convinced me not to even give it a chance. Like I think I probably would enjoy it the same way you would for like a couple hours of it looks pretty, but I didn't
enjoy it at all.
Same way.
Oh, I did.
But I'm saying I think I enjoy the graphic element for those half hour or whatever, and then say, wow, this game is actually terrible.
Yeah.
I only have a couple more minutes, so I just want to talk about. I'll talk about Forspoken really quickly.
Okay.
I went in with a little bit more hype than most people because I know a lot of people think it's kind of mid. But I have been reading a lot about people's opinions on it, and they said this game's actually really fun. Give it a chance. The traversal combat's really good. I played it, and I will say the combat is really fun. The traversal is super fun. The story seems interesting, but I think I already kind of told you where the animations and the dialogue and the way they talk feels very like Xbox 360, where it's like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, it's like it has like that half a second of like there's not a fluidity, and the animations and they don't blink, like it looks very robotic.
Weird.
So I skipped the entire story and I kind of rushed through the story so I can unlock all the powers. And by the time I unlocked all the powers, I didn't really want to explore the world and use them because it's just a bunch of check marks now of collectibles and powering up your stuff. Like, I like the open world things you can do, but the thing is, once you've already beaten the game, you kind of lose that drive of, I can go power up to fight the final boss. It's like, I already beat the final boss and now I'm just powering up for no reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like so
unless there's hidden enemies that are extra hard or something.
Yeah, I know there are, but I felt the pacing was really not well laid out. Like they should have given the powers earlier and had the story just kind of. There should have been more bosses later on, and just it wasn't well paced. Again, combat really fun, traversal really fun. Did I enjoy my time with it? Yeah. Would I say it's better than a 7 tops? Probably not. Like it was a solid 7. I enjoyed my time with it. But it's nothing to write home
It's
about.
almost the kind of game where the thing that makes me not want to play it is like, I don't want to go through the first hour of story and learning. I just want to jump in and play right away. Like if they could design it that way, which I know we're out of time, Derek, but I have also been playing Armored Core 6. And Armored Core 6 is a great example of that, where like there is no onboarding. It's not like it starts out super hard, but it's like, here's the controls, here's your first mission. Go do the thing that you need to do, which is usually blow something up. And it's really fun. The graphics are amazing. The art direction's amazing. And it's like From Software, the thing I love about From Software is that they stay in their lane. They know what they're good at. They don't try to reinvent the wheel and add a bunch of dumb stuff. And I really appreciate the game design because it feels like it harkens back to like almost like a PS2 era or earlier, where it's like...
Yeah, like Zone of the Enders.
Well, even Zone of the Enders had a lot of talking. This game is like, here's the mission, go for it. You want to upgrade on the side, go for it. But like, it's quick. Like I can turn it on and do a mission in 5-10 minutes, and it makes me end up playing more. So it's not like this bloated game where these big introduction and this big cutscene, and I got to learn how to do this and talk to this guy to get my first gun.
Yeah, you don't have to invest to get to the good parts. You just invest because it's good.
Yeah, and you can play for an hour, and you're basically like, I feel like my build right now can get me to the end of the game. It doesn't feel like there's like your RPG upgrading. And it's really, really, I'm really liking it. The art direction is just awesome. And there's those moments where you take down a boss or whatever, and you're just kind of like, yeah. It's like Elden Ring where you feel like you just nailed it, and you feel like you're playing like Devil May Cry, like you're stylishly playing. I mean, I know it's definitely going to be on my Game of the Year list somewhere. That's how much I like it. It's not going to be number 10. So I'll talk about it maybe a little more next time. I know we're out of time because I'll have beaten it by then. But it's really good. If you can find it on sale, Derek, I highly recommend it. It's really
it's on my watch list.
It's really, really cool and fun. And the cool thing is like the sense of scale. And also there's a little bit of like a platforming element where you're like, okay, I've got to climb up this giant robot. So you got to kind of like, you can only hover so much. So you can like hover up to his leg and then get onto this platform. But if you get to the top, he'll blow you away. He's got this wicked ass laser beam. So you've got to kind of like hide on the side of the leg and hide behind the shoulder and come out after he fires, shoot them, and go back to get cover. But in a very much of a momentum-based platform sense. I really love this style. There's nothing else like it. Yeah, it's really awesome. Anyway, we talked about Nintendo Absolutely Zero today on the Nintendo Bros podcast.
Let's get it next time.
But yeah, Derek, thanks for coming out to the Nintendo Bros podcast studio in downtown LA.
I like that you sound like I'm a guest when I'm a mainstay.
Yeah, we filming from downtown Los Angeles in the studio, and on the Warner Brothers lot is the Nintendo Bros podcast.
Yeah. This is Derek. See you later.
This is Peter signing out. Goodbye.